do we have on the submersible? How are we going to control this thing, Dee?
I could not believe it when I saw it.
Sitting there going, for fuck's sake.
Like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. It looks like, and not just a game controller, it looks like an old school Atari game controller, or maybe Nintendo.
There's like a PlayStation controller.
They're steering this submersible with a gaming controller.
Dude, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I bet I could probably steer this better than they did. I'm a gamer. My 4-year-old could drive this submersible.
I think you're right.
Does it have firepower?
I don't know. We're probably about to find out if it shoots little missiles out the front, you know.
Can it turn into an elephant like in Mario Wonder? Man, well, it's all a game. It's all a game to them.
Remote reality, yeah, that's the key. Unlocking stories wild and free. With a host, side by side. Channel surfers, let's ride.
Welcome to Remote Reality. This is Lauren.
And this is Dee.
We are watching a really good documentary on Netflix today. This documentary covers Titan, the OceanGate Submersible. Do you remember that from 2023?
I do. It was all over the news.
Right now, this is one of the top trending things on YouTube, and I'm very excited to watch it. I just kind of know what happened in the news, so I'm excited to see what we're going to learn.
Well, let's dive into it.
Let's go. So this is Netflix. This is their documentary, Titan, the OceanGate Submersible Disaster. Right from the beginning, we're coming in hot on this documentary. They are building the tension. They're building the scene. We've got this dramatic music playing. We're out in the middle of the ocean. You see the OceanGate sitting on, what do they call that?
I think they're calling it the Titan, though, aren't they? I thought I heard one of them say something about Titan.
But what do they call the thing that it's sitting on at sea?
Maybe a floating dock?
That sounds good to me. All right.
Yeah.
So with our expert knowledge on maritime things, the OceanGate's sitting on a floating dock. And it appears that these might be passengers because they're explaining how things work. Once we get there, we're going to get you set up. When they go in, you see Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, explaining and talking to this passenger group.
Yeah, he was telling them if they hear anything, it's not normal. It's not going to be an immediate emergency or something that needs immediate attention. And then they start screwing the passengers into this capsule, to this ship or submersive.
They're like drilling these doors shut. And Stockton's going, ignore the alarms. Nope. Sorry. Nope. Get me off this thing. I mean, I know hindsight's 2020, but how are you sitting there with this guy going, if it's an alarm, don't worry about it. You're out in the middle of the ocean and they're screwing you in. They're screwing you into like a tin can.
Yeah. I would be terrified. My panic level would be at
Now, I don't think that this is the fated crew. We know who the fated crew consisted of, but this must be one of the other passenger tours of the Titanic, because Titan, this wasn't their first ship. This wasn't their first tour.
So as it submerges into the water, you hear this popping sound and cracking sounds, and you can hear their reactions to these noises as well. You know, they were like, ooh, what the? I heard something.
Yeah, and that was after the loud one. At first, it kind of sounded like somebody tapping on your windshield. That's what the crack sounded like. But then there's like this loud pop, and ooh, what happened? I screamed when that happened.
I did too. We were both sitting here going, nope.
No
way.
Not gonna do it. So the popping sounds, they just get louder and louder and faster. The crew starts seeing stuff floating up from the side. At that point, I would be like, take my butt to the surface. I am done with this tour. Thank you. No, thank you.
Reverse.
Which button? I'd start hitting buttons. Which one's getting me out of here? We'd probably all get ejected. Oh my gosh. Yeah. When the crackling started like back to back, my anxiety was,
I know. And the music doesn't help. It's very like dramatic and kind of scary, like Jaws movie or something.
Oh my gosh. Well, at least they weren't hearing that music, but I think anything would help take away from that popping sound. It was so rapid. And they see stuff floating up from the windows. What the heck?
Like, get out of there. Just get out of here.
which is the way out. Somebody give me a map. So the first person up in this documentary to talk about what happened, we've got Emily Hammerstein. She had a really interesting job working for the OceanGate crew.
Yeah, she was the one that actually screwed the people into the submersibles.
And she didn't feel comfortable doing it.
No, she felt really bad.
I wonder if she told them, she was like, look, I wouldn't go in this tin can. I'm going to bolt you into it. You just paid me $250,000, but I wouldn't do it.
And you gave me a tip.
Okay. Actually, completely
Like
safe.
the bell door.
Completely safe. 10%. Thanks. So she knew as soon as the news came out, before even knowing what crew this was, what company this was, she knew it was OceanGate. She knew it was the Titan.
Yeah.
What does that say?
That is not a good look at all for this company. Mm-mm.
Don't worry. Don't worry about the alarms, Dee. There's no emergency that can happen underwater. Stockton Rush.
Overconfident.
He was sitting there like, yeah, 250,000 and tip us 10%.
They're all getting tips. They're all getting tips.
Next up, we have a whistleblower, David Lockridge.
Yeah, he says that he has taken all of his information to authorities, his personal experiences, and nobody did anything.
And I have to wonder, the lawyer in me is sitting here going, well, who would have jurisdiction over this? This location was right over the Titanic, the Titanic. They were a Titanic voyage tour. Yeah, because there's nothing in karma or bad luck about doing this.
That's what I was thinking when I saw the location and the name.
And the U.S. Coast Guard was being deployed to the scene. It was right off the coast of Canada. So I'm not a maritime lawyer. I do know that sometimes laws change when you're out there at sea. But yeah, it looks like this area over the Titanic, this is international waters. This is no man's land. There's not one single government that's responsible for it. Now, it looks like the U.S. does exercise a little bit of authority over the actual shipwreck and the material in the shipwreck. Kind of, they found it. They've got a little bit of authority under that. And there's some treaties where different countries agree to work together in situations, but I don't know who you report this to. I know this guy's going to the authorities, but you have to have power to act. You can't sit there and complain to the U.S. government about something that's happening in Europe. Same thing. This is something that's not happening within the United States and its jurisdiction.
It should be interesting.
I just don't know who would act. And actually, one of my professors in law school, I love this story, told the most interesting story. He was traveling in Africa and he gets to the border and he gets out right before the border for that country closes. But when he goes to enter the border from the other country, the neighboring country, that border is closed too. So he was stuck overnight in no man's land.
What country was he in?
He was in the nation of Africa. I can't remember specifically which countries, but he said he sat there at night and he was just up like, okay, if somebody murders me, which one is going to have jurisdiction? He was sitting there thinking through these scenarios. So this is very similar. That's what I think about when we get in here. So sorry, law rant over. Back to the submersible. There was a large search and rescue effort. And this part, it's kind of pissing me off. These people that were on the ship had so much money that they had nothing better to do than take a little trip down to the Titanic. Yet when the U.S. government's out there, when the Canadian Coast Guard is out there, that's our tax money going to pay to try to find these people.
Yeah. Wow. I hadn't even thought about it that way.
No, they're sitting there with so much money that they can just do whatever. And we are using our tax money that could be going to education or to our roads or whatever it might be. That was not a cheap search. It was 2 times the size of Connecticut.
Yeah, it was massitive. I think they said it was like 2.5 miles down as far as like
saying that we shouldn't search for those people, but it's crazy to see these wealthy people blowing money on this and we end up paying. So yeah, that part kind of got me a little bit. And we've got crew member number 3 that knew that this was not a good idea. And this is the engineering head, Tony Nielsen.
Ooh,
Tony, he said, I knew it was going to end this way.
he knew. I'm speechless.
If I'm an attorney representing the estates of the people that have died here or representing anybody trying to recover from this wreckage, I'm wanting him on the stand. I am wanting Tony up there saying, look, I was the engineer and we knew it was going to end this way. We start seeing evidence too. The text messages that people that worked for OceanGate were sending each other, they'll never fucking find them. There's no way this is going to end well. So while all of us are sitting here just watching our TVs thinking, oh, oxygen countdown, it looks like from the jump, the OceanGate employees are like, nah, we're screwed. It's over. Done.
Yeah, it seems like every single one that worked there knew that this was not a good idea, these submersibles, that something was wrong.
They knew the risk. And it doesn't sound like they informed the passengers of the risk. They're saying, ignore the alarms. It's nothing if you hear something. This is very misleading.
True, but I bet they had the standard, sign this before you go down in case something happens to you.
Okay, great. But when you're sitting there telling the people there's no risk, unless that contract says there's a risk and you have to ignore any sort of warranties outside of this contract, which that might have been in there, but you would have to read the contract to see that it was a risk.
True.
Which is why you always read the contract.
I was getting ready to say most people don't read the contract. They just signed them. I know, you're an attorney.
When I was in the hospital about to have an emergency C-section, I've got the contract and I'm like going through it line by line.
And this is a huge story. It is not only nationwide, it is worldwide. Yeah. Every news station in across
world, Japan, Germany, you see articles from everywhere.
Yeah. And we finally meet all of the passengers or get introduced to the passengers that are on this ill-fated submersible.
Doomed cruise. These people that were screwed into this tuna can that exploded. Oh my gosh. So sad.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got Stockton Rush. He's the CEO of OceanGate.
He's the brains behind this whole thing.
Yep. And Hamish Harding. He's a billionaire businessman from was it Great Britain? British? He's British.
Yeah, he's British. Is that his name? Britain and Great Britain?
No, if they are. I always get it confused.
Y'all, we are not geography experts.
I
don't play one on TV.
I'll admit, forever I thought Europe and Britain were the same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they were two different things until I was an adult.
Boy.
Yeah.
Europe is a continent.
I know. I'm such an idiot. I have my blonde moment.
It's okay.
Let's just put it that way. And then
okay. I'm probably not much better. Not much better.
And we also have a French maritime expert on the Titanic. He is
I bet he was really excited to go see that Titanic.
Oh my gosh, they actually called him Mr. Titanic.
They just exploded his dreams.
Oh no.
What was his name?
That would be Paul Henry Narzoulé.
Paul Henry Narzoulé. I can't say Henry the way they do it. It's like Henry Narzoulé.
I am awful with trying to pronounce anything with an accent if it's like a foreign country and you're trying to pronounce somebody's name.
Say his name in a southern hillbilly accent. Go. Paul Henry Narzoulé.
Yeah, Paul Henry.
All right. And then we have some Pakistani citizens. One is a businessman. The other is his son. That's Shahzada Dawood and Suleiman Dawood.
Aww.
And Suleiman, he's young. I think they said he was 18.
It's kind of sad. The whole thing is sad. I hope I don't cry. I'm usually pretty good at not crying on this stuff, so we'll see.
And for him, I feel the worst because you trust your parent that they're going to keep you safe and not do anything.
Make good judgments.
You think you're going on this voyage with your dad and it ends tragically. So I feel the worst for Suleiman. Yeah. I feel the least worst for Stockton because he didn't pay to go on it and he knew this thing was a time bomb.
A ticking time bomb.
Absolutely. All right. And Dee, this is going to be sad because we start meeting family members. There is Sidone Narzoulé. This is Paul Henry's daughter. And when she received a call from the U.S. Coast Guard, she cried for at least the first 10 minutes.
Gosh, heart-wrenching. Can't imagine hearing that news.
But she was comforted to see the search efforts underway. She felt like there was some hope. the news was reporting these oxygen countdowns. So she didn't feel completely lost, which it's really interesting to see the immediate reaction from people who were experts and professionals working on this craft and people who weren't. I'm definitely falling into Sedone's opinion. I was sitting there thinking, oh, there might be hope.
Exactly.
I wasn't like everybody's screwed. It's over, which is exactly what we're seeing from the people that actually work for OceanGate.
Yeah, it's two completely different. And they did a great job with sharing those text messages and stuff because you can really see that they're like, we knew this was going to happen. It's here. It's finally happened. Versus
this was
the family
all about
hoping.
the money.
Yeah.
All of these people knew that this was a dangerous situation, but they were paying the bills on it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't care. Proceed anyway. Wild. But it's no surprise that this was an international news story. It has everything. We've got billionaires. We've got a submarine. We've got oxygen that's being depleted and a timer. And we've got the Titanic. How could this not be front and center in international headlines?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything Titanic, it always gets a lot of attention anyway.
And it just evokes so many different things to think about. These people spending their money, like we talked about earlier, and who's going to pay for it? What countries are in charge? There's just so many interesting aspects of it to consider.
Yeah.
Now, Emily, former OceanGate employee Emily, she was angry. She was angry when this came out. She seemed like it was very traumatic for her. She had to try to not watch the news, not even go online. Information about this was everywhere. And she was assuming the worst.
Yeah, I think she already felt bad. She was one of them that would screw them into the submersibles.
Doesn't that say something? Like, if you really believed in this product, if you really believe these people would be safe, you wouldn't be thinking worst case scenario. You wouldn't be thinking it's over, they're screwed. You would be thinking, what the heck happened? When you hear that the OceanGate goes down, if you are an OceanGate employee and they did what they should have done, they're going to be going, what did we miss? We crossed our T's. We dotted our I's. These people are entrusting us with their lives. They're paying us a lot of money. But not one of the employees had that reaction at all.
No, none of them.
No. They're all like, you're screwed. It's over. Boom.
I don't think I could do it. I would be like, don't get on there. Stop. Don't get on. Don't get on. I would be messaging my friends, social media. Don't do it. Don't take that cruise.
The money aspect in this is so strong because these people are driven by money. They're driven by probably the need just to survive. Without maybe Stockton Rush, I would assume that the other people working on this project, they're not making money hand over fist. They're probably just getting by paycheck to paycheck.
That's probably why Emily is having such a hard time. If she knew this, her conscience probably wanted her to say something to people, and she didn't because she needed her job.
She needed her job, and these people needed to live. But
I wouldn't want to be in that position.
If everybody had fair wages and they weren't struggling with money and they weren't worried about where their food was going to come from, then these people might still be alive. How does that happen? Make sure that you're paying fair wages. I mean, $250,000 seems more than fair, but think about all the people it takes to develop this, buy the materials, do the engineering, the cost of fuel for it, maintenance. So for 4 people to go down on a submarine, you're splitting all of those costs 4 ways.
Kind of like airline travel.
Fewer people.
Fewer people and a lot higher ticket.
More like a private jet, but also airplanes are mass produced. You don't have mass produced tourist submarines. This is all very special and niche.
Right.
So, this is what makes it such a thought experiment. This is what makes it so interesting. There's so many different things to think about when you think about this entire situation. Strap on your oxygen tanks. We're going back underwater. And if anybody's watching on YouTube, you can see Dee's stagnant picture today. She's scuba-ing. Thank you, AI, and me for just doing really bad photoshopping. Anyway, we are going back underwater and we are seeing pieces of something. So we're going to play a little game. Dee, we're each going to guess. Is that Titanic or submersible wreckage?
I was thinking Titanic wreckage because I know from past documentaries and stuff there's footage of that anyway. And I think, James Cameron, isn't he the one doing this documentary? And I think he did the movie Titanic as well.
I didn't realize he did this documentary.
I
All
think
right.
so.
Well, I'm going to say submersible so that we just really, there's no way to tell. There's wreckage both ways. I'm just going to say the Titanic stuff probably would be a lot gooier by now. It's been underwater for a while and this looked a little cleaner. So let's see what happens. Survey says it's submersible wreckage. That was a hard one. That was a hard one because like you said, James Cameron, it could have been old footage. I don't know that it looked much cleaner back in the 90s, but hey, you don't know. So we see them pulling pieces of this vessel out of the water. And then we meet Jason Neubauer. He is about to retire as an admiral from the U.S. Coast Guard, but he is just fascinated by this incident. So he decides to take on the OceanGate investigation. Now, he says the first thing that you do is you look for jurisdiction, which we talked about earlier. And he said that the jurisdiction automatically goes to who has the flag state of the vessel. Now, what the flag state is when somebody registers their vessel, it's the country that it's registered under. So it goes under those laws. Basically, if the OceanGate Titan is registered, if it's flagged, then that's going to be the country that has automatic jurisdiction. They're going to be the one with the power over this legal proceedings and over the search.
Well, that's a good way to settle it,
Yeah, I guess that's how it happens if it's registered. Okay. And what do we have with the Titan, Dee?
My goodness. So it's
got a mess.
Yes, it's made in the United States. It is
Dropped into the ocean
in Canada
by a
international
Canadian ship.
by a Canadian ship into international waters.
Oh, and is it flagged?
It's not even flat.
All right. So nobody's wanting to sign their name to this. There's not one country that's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to sign off on that. Ugh.
The investigator says it's very unusual.
So what we have is a jurisdictional mess. So fun. This is where we get into the fun law stuff.
And Jason says this isn't just unusual. He has never seen this in 26 years of investigations.
Gosh, this guy is about to retire as an admiral from the U.S. Coast Guard. He's never seen this. He's never seen an unflagged ship. This makes me wonder, like, are they being kind of sketchy? Did they have business licenses? Or were they just thinking, okay, we're operating this thing out of international waters. We're in no man's land. Let's go.
I'm seeing some shady behavior.
These people on this ship maybe should have talked to an attorney beforehand and found out what if something goes wrong. Like they had the money for it. Just what if something goes wrong? What security can this company give me? How can we ensure this is safe? Who is in charge of governing this vessel? But instead, they were listening to the guy who said, ignore the alarms and the crackling. It's all fine. There's no emergencies. Give me your money.
Yeah. I'm starting to see now why the whistleblower was having so much trouble getting anybody to listen to him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's what I assumed from the beginning.
Yeah.
Just
You're right.
About my professor stuck out in the middle of nowhere, wondering who is going to take care of things if he dies. And that's how lawyers think. We play this little game. We kill somebody. What happens?
Yeah, Jason agrees with us. This is all by design.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go back to March 2016.
You travel.
We see Stockton Rush. It looks like he's sitting in a partially built submersible.
They're putting this thing together. They're in some sort of storage unit warehouse and they're just slapping the parts on. So we're seeing the construction of this shit show.
Yeah. And hey, the lights work.
Oh my gosh, the lights work. My God. Rest assured, everybody, the lights work. So it's not going to be dark when you explode. Okay. Or implode or plode, whatever. When shit goes down, we're going to have light.
What a relief.
Exactly. Well, we've got lights. And what else do we have? Well, we've got an oxygen tank and 4 days extra oxygen just in case an emergency does happen. So safety first. We have 2 displays, like 2 TVs. You pull them out. You got one on each side. It looks like a really cool setup if you're a gamer, like if you're going to do your Sims and you want to see on one screen your inspiration, like when I'm doing Sims and I'm building the Hyrule Castle from Zelda. Yes, I do have that on my Sim on my gallery. I do like to make Bowser's Castle. I made one from Zelda. So yeah, I need one screen to look at the inspiration because I can't see things in my head. I am mind blind. And then I need my other screen to build it in the Sims. Now, very similar to gaming, what else do we have on the submersible? How are we going to control this thing, Dee?
I could not believe it when I saw it.
They're going, for fuck's sake.
Like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. It looks like, and not just a game controller, it looks like an old school Atari game controller, or maybe Nintendo.
There's like a PlayStation controller.
They're steering this submersible with a gaming controller.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I bet I could probably steer this better than they did. I'm a gamer. My 4-year-old could drive this submersible.
I think you're right.
Does it have firepower?
I don't know. We're probably about to find out if it shoots little missiles out the front, you know.
Can it turn into an elephant like in Mario Wonder? Oh man. Well, it's all a game. It's all a game to them. I mean, this is bad. I think Stockton Rush, he's pretty attractive.
He was.
Okay, so it's not just me. It's like he's pretty. At least he's pretty. I don't know how smart he is. See? So many different layers to this. That's up for debate. Is he smart because he was milking these people for a ton of money and living his dream? Or is he dumb because he was floating this thing with a Game Boy?
I'm just like, I'm either going to cuss or say nothing. So
is he smart for having this scheme, or is he dumb for floating it with a Game Boy controller? I'm going to have to go with dumb because I guess in the end he's gone.
Yeah. Sad.
So next up is Joseph Ossie. Now, he is a videographer that OceanGate had hired for marketing. They wanted to get the word out about this amazing experience on OceanGate. And he thinks that Stockton Rush is a genius.
Yeah, Joseph Ossie says he's a genius. You know, he said
Stockton
he was.
Rush.
Yeah. And
Joseph Ossie might be a genius too.
He said he was.
Toot his own horn a little. I might toot his horn a little bit better than Stockton's. But yeah, he thinks he's a genius. What else? Why does he think he's a genius?
He said he talked with confidence.
True.
He was a scientist.
He did seem to know what he was talking about. Like, fake it till you make it, Stockton.
Yeah, I kind of got the impression when he was saying that he thought that Rushton talked.
Stockton talked.
Yeah. I guess I'm doing the ass backwards words today.
You know what? It's the name Stockton. I've never seen that before until the submersible. I don't know any Stocktons. This is what happens when your kids don't have names like Jane and Jack.
Yeah.
But yeah, Stockton. So what were you going to say?
I kind of got the impression when he was talking about Stockton that he spoke in a way that made everybody feel safe and secure in his confidence in whatever he was talking about.
Speaking with authorities, people believed him. But you know what? I didn't believe, which apparently Stockton had convinced himself of. Joseph says that Stockton would say that accessibility is ownership. No. He said if you can get to a place, if you have access to it, you own it. Which that's not true. That is so not true from a legal perspective. Try walking into a Walmart and acting like you own it.
Just because it's accessible.
Eating the food right out of the grocery store, right off the shelves. Accessibility is ownership. You can get to it. You can eat it. I mean, if you own something, you have rights to it. You can do what you want with it. This is just a moronic argument. The only thing I can think that's similar in law is something called adverse possession. Okay, so lawyers out there are going, oh my God, property law, what are we doing? Sorry, I do a lot of property law stuff as a financial attorney. But adverse possession is when you act as if you own a property for a long period of time to where the law finally says, yeah, you own it. And you're doing it adversely to the ownership interest of another person. I know that's a lot, but let's say that your next door neighbor owns this property. They've told you to get off, but they're never around. You're like, screw it. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to pay the taxes on it, stuff like that. But it's for a long period of time. It's like decades. So none of that applies to what Stockton Rush is doing. Dude, you do not own the Titanic. Just having accessibility to it doesn't make it yours. That kind of opinion, I want to see where it's going to take us because it sounds messy.
It sounds kind of moronic, actually, for someone who's supposed to be so smart. I mean, who's he trying to convince?
Well, this just reminds me a lot of this quote by Albert Einstein. He said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. Now, fish, they can do a lot of things. They can do things that we can't do. They can live underwater. They can't climb a tree. So everybody has their own talents. And I'm sure that's the same with Stockton. He probably had knowledge about certain aspects of things. Like he's a marine biologist, but there were things he didn't know about. And he did try to hire the experts to come in and make sure, that it was engineered properly, that he was building proper equipment. But if he doesn't have a comprehensive knowledge of all of it, then he's just relying on other people to provide that for him. He might not even be hiring the right people.
True. That makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not going to say he's not a genius. He can be a genius in some aspects, but we're clearly seeing where he's had his missteps here. And everybody's a genius in their own way. Speaking of experts, we've got our first one up here. Well, probably not our first one, but they call him the expert. His name is Rob McCallum. And he said that when OceanGate first started, he was right there with them. And they were looking at troll sites, which is trolling is when you fish with a big net, you like sweep it to catch a bunch of fish. And specifically, they were looking at an estuary off of Washington called the Puget Sound. So that was kind of their specific focus when Rob first got involved.
In 2016, Stockton was no longer interested in the Puget Sound. He wanted to start taking people down to see the Titanic.
Yeah, and the Titanic, it apparently has a really big draw. They said that there's only 3 words in the English language that are known in English kind of internationally. Do you remember what those were?
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating.
It was fascinating.
Coca-Cola,
God,
and Titanic.
And Titanic. What?
I know.
Coca-Cola kind of makes sense because I think they still call it Coca-Cola in different countries. Like if you go to Mexico, you have a Mexican Coke. God makes sense because it's just such a big idea. Titanic for number 3?
That is a huge fascination.
I know. I mean, that was back in 1912, in April of 1912, which I know because my grandfather was alive when the Titanic sank. He was born in March of 2012, so he's a few weeks old. And I always think that's fascinating. Oh, Grandpa was alive when the Titanic sank. But yes, that just kind of shows you what interest, if you're looking from a marketing perspective, there's going to be a lot of people interested in the Titanic if it's so popular that people around the world know what it means, even if they don't speak our language.
Yeah.
It's wild. And this is where Rob McCallum comes in as the expert.
Yeah. He had done several expeditions down to the Titanic already on the other 4, I believe, submersibles that people could travel down there to see it. So he had taken like 150 to 160 people down already.
Yeah. So this wasn't an original idea, but there wasn't a lot of people doing it. So you have to wonder, like, is there not a lot of people doing it because it's a horrible idea? If you do 160 people, though, I mean, hold on, let me see. Where's my calculator? So, I mean, at $250,000 a person and 60 people, $40,000. No, sorry, $40 million.
Wow.
So maybe he's just seeing those dollar signs. But yeah, that's why we've got this expert coming on board, because he's taken 160 people down in one of the only 4 submersibles to see the Titanic. So, hey, come show me how to do this. Now, he was a pilot taking people down, so he did have knowledge about operating the vessel and taking it down. But what about building the vessel? Are we going to be hiring people that have built these other 4 submersibles? And even if we do, there's only 4 of them. So how certain are we about the safety at this point? A lot of questions.
Yeah, those are some good questions. And apparently it had been since 2005 since any submersibles had went down to see the Titanic. So I'm thinking Stockton is probably
reignite this tourist industry.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
And also, apparently, the price back in 2015 when they started the project was quite a bit less expensive than it was at $250,000 a pop when we had the explosion 10 years later. It looks like the tickets were about 107,000 then. Scratch that 40 million. It's more a little over 17 million for 160 tours, which that's quite a loss. And my guess is they had to increase those prices because they probably did start running into, we need more experts. We have to design this. There haven't been a lot of them. It's not like I can get a blueprint for a submersible or go buy one from the store. They probably realized there were a lot of costs involved.
Yeah, it couldn't be cheap to do something that would go that far down in the ocean and be safe.
Absolutely not. So we start seeing how the crew found their jobs with the Titan. And basically, these are people that were all just fascinated by the idea of this adventure of building this craft and, the exploration of it.
Yeah, they described it as a passion almost, like it was a passion. Yeah, these people were taking pay cuts because this was their passion.
They just wanted to love what they did. And yeah, it was a significant pay cut. But sometimes, you can figure out ways to live on less so that you enjoy your time on Earth. It makes sense.
Yeah. If you're happy, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
You told that to an attorney once that was working for me, because debtors attorneys, we're not rich. We don't make a bunch of money, but I love what I do. I love helping people out of debts. That's what we were telling that other attorney. If you love this, then that's going to be better than sitting in a closet and working 100 billable hours a week.
Yeah, I don't think he stayed in bankruptcy.
No, he didn't. Anyway, so yeah, I get that, but kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, these are people that are taking huge pay cuts and doing this because it's their passion. My question also is, Stockton, he is building this thing before you have passengers. Where is he getting the money to finance this? This isn't like Elon Musk building spaceships, because we already know he's wealthy. He has investments. He's got the money to create spaceships. But where is Stockton getting the money? Is he getting a loan for this? And this is a very new idea, what they're doing. This has never been done before.
I wonder if he's trying to get like investors, because they said he was a great salesperson.
I wonder that too. But again, we're investing in something. While there have been other submarines, they weren't made with a carbon hull fiber. And I wonder if the carbon hull fiber was a way to save money.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Oh my gosh, Lauren, they literally are fucking PlayStation controllers, like you said.
Girl called it. I've played that PlayStation. Man, Grand Theft Auto Vice City was my jam back in college. Used to not have class on Fridays, and me and my boyfriend, who was a PhD student there, he didn't have any classes to teach on Fridays, and we would just drink and play Grand Theft Auto on PlayStation. So yeah, I knew it when I saw it. I could control that ship.
So David Lockridge, the whistleblower,
toot toot.
Yeah, he says, he's working on this, and he assumes that it's going to be classed.
That's a fair assumption. So class, they explain that in maritime, that means that you're having an independent third party coming in and taking a look at the structure, making sure that everything is safe. So basically, you and your buddies that built this, it's not somebody from your crew. It's going to be somebody that's not associated with the project, that will be making money from obviously classing it, but they're not going to make money on the success or failure of it. So you wouldn't have that bias. And before you have a paying member, you would have it classed. Now, he gives a good example. David gives an example, kind of an analogy of what this would be like.
Yeah, he said if you built a plane, you could take all your friends up all you wanted, and nobody would say anything about it. Right. Yeah. But as soon as you want a paying customer, then you've got to get this classed done, this safety.
So Dee, what they're telling us is if you and I want to go out back and try to throw us together airplane, we can fly on it. We just can't charge the channel surfers to ride on it. And we wouldn't do that anyway. Y'all are family. We'd let you fly for free.
Yeah, they could just come at their own risk, knowing that we built it, but we didn't get it certified.
Google
classed.
I'll figure out how to Google it. And I don't know what kind of material we're using because I don't think we're going to have any investors for this project. The more you learn on this documentary.
So Stockton, all of the other subs that had been out there had been classed. So Stockton says that once his has been tested, it's going to be one of the safest subs out there.
And we see him in an interview, and the person interviewing him says, well, isn't that what they said about the Titanic? Yes.
Again, another Titanic reference.
Shadowing. And next, we're going home. We are in Charleston, South Carolina, y'all. And I know exactly where we are from the moment I see it. That is St. Michael's Church, that white cathedral tower. And that's the Four Corners of Law. So in Charleston, when you're at the intersection of Meeting and Broad Street, we have 4 buildings on each corner that they say represent the 4 different kinds of law. So you have the federal courthouse and U.S. Postal Service. That's going to be federal law. You have the Charleston County Courthouse, which is going to be state law. That's where I would go if I have like criminal cases. The probate court's over there as well. So when I went to get my marriage license, that's where I went to get it. But yeah, I've had hearings over at that courthouse for state court. And then the Charleston City Hall is on another block. So that's going to be local law, city law. And then you have St. Michael's Church, which is that white, beautiful building you see in the picture when we come into Charleston. That is God's law. Now, this is only about a block away from where I would typically practice in court. The bankruptcy court doesn't go into the regular federal courts. We're Article 1, so we have our own building, which is actually directly across the street from the state courthouse. We use that same parking garage, and then we just walk across the street. And that parking garage, pretty interesting. It was built over a Quaker burial ground. Still have the fences up and like a little plaque, like, okay, here lies the Quakers. But it's also a Pokemon stop. So when I was in federal court, I'd be able to catch Pokemon.
My gosh.
Yeah, all this historical stuff. There are a lot of Pokemon down in Charleston. So yeah, I know where we're at. We're home. And this is just last year. So why are we in Charleston? Well, the U.S. Coast Guard is pursuing and executing their investigation. During this process, there are officials that are asking questions, and it looks like a court hearing. It's not, but the people who are testifying, like workers for OceanGate or the U.S. Coast Guard investigator, they are entitled to have counsel there at the hearing. And then you also have the interested parties. One of those interested parties is going to be OceanGate. I don't know who the other interested party is. I would think representatives maybe of the states of the people who lost their lives, perhaps the governments that's where the ship was built or where it was dropped. We don't really know yet, but we're going to find out. But we do start off with some pretty intense questioning.
Yeah, they're questioning Tony, the director of engineering.
So this man that slapped this thing together.
And he starts answering these questions, and you can hear his watch going off like it's an alarm, like it's dinging.
I know. I was like, uh-oh, somebody forgot to turn off their phone. You always silence that before you go in court.
I know. And he apologizes and said his, watch is going off because his heart rate is up.
Whoa. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna, it's almost like a lie detector.
I know, right?
He also says that the first week working at OceanGate was great, but he was told this was going to be completed in a year, and he was just kind of told, just hurry up and do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
That's his testimony. No wonder he's nervous.
Even though this was a great first week, the culture of this company was even though it was a great first week, Stockton kind of created this toxic work environment. He was firing people right in front of everybody else. He never did anything wrong. If anything was going on, it was somebody else's fault. No accountability whatsoever.
Yeah, if you watch Sister Wives, this man was Teflon. He was like Cody Brown. Not my fault.
Sticking. Nothing's sticking to me.
Nothing's sticking. And speaking of sticking, big swinging dickin'.
Oh my gosh. I was just like, what does that even mean?
So apparently Stockton, one of his favorite things to say was that his muses, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, they were big swinging dicks. And if he could make this Titan work, make this submersible out of carbon fiber, which had never been done before, he could be a big swinging dick too. Wow.
What is he just throwing it over his shoulder, testing the temperature in the toilet? I don't understand what he's supposed to be meaning by this.
You want to be a big swinging dick? That's your goal? No wonder this thing has imploded. This business model, looks like it was set up to implode. And even though the first week was great, the work environment was toxic.
Yeah, he would fire people right in front of everybody else. If something was wrong, he never took any accountability. He always blamed it on other people.
The man was Teflon. Nothing stuck to him. It was someone else's fault. And he was going to let you know and fire you right in front of everybody. And we meet Matt McCoy, who was the director of operations for OceanGate, who did end up resigning. See, why did Matt resign?
Because Stockton told him that he could buy a congressman. And he said he had never heard anybody say that before.
So which congressman is he buying? Lindsey Graham? We're in Charleston, which South Carolina, we got a few of them. Basically, plan. He told Matt, my plan is to flag this under Bahama law, to build this in the United States and to launch it out of Canada. And that way we're not in the jurisdiction of the US. If the US Coast Guard starts coming up my ass about it, I'll just buy a congressman. I'll just use my generational wealth for that. So what kind of wealth did he have? Well, he would have been in the top 1%. We can trace Stockton's ancestors back to 2 of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. So presumably they didn't, squander their money and they invested well and still around. What about his education?
I believe he went to Princeton. He wasn't
school.
Yeah, he wasn't exactly the greatest with academics, but he still got an Ivy League education.
Not the brightest crayon in the box, but if there's nothing we've learned recently was Lori Loughlin, you can buy a degree. And his wife also was from a privileged background. His wife, Wendy, she was actually the great-granddaughter of 2 of the Titanic passengers.
Ugh, another Titanic connection.
So, maybe she got him interested in this. But even if you're from generational wealth, there's a big difference than some generational wealth and Elon Musk.
Yes.
Big difference. Matt McCoy tells us that he was worried about this business model. It didn't have an income stream. Unless Stockton's investments of his generational wealth are earning a bunch of money to finance this project, then at some point you're going to have more going out than coming in. And you're going past your year timeline and you're telling people to hurry up. And it's not because your last name is Rush. It's because you didn't think about the financial implications here. You come from a privileged background. You're just sitting there thinking, oh, money grows on trees, and it does. You've got investments. They earn interest. You pay short-term capital gains taxes on it. So you're not paying regular income tax. You're paying 10% if you hold it for a year. You've got mailbox money coming from people trying to avoid the estate tax. So yeah, in your everyday life, you're not thinking about money, but we're talking about a very expensive operation. And I think he bit off more than he could chew.
I agree.
Now, his 2 muses, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, these are some of the richest people in the world. We're talking the top of the 1%, the top end. And he had a really interesting term for them.
He was calling them big swinging dicks, and he wanted to do this so he could be a big swinging dick too.
If he could get a carbon fiber submersible, he would be a big swinging dick, just like Elon and Jeff. What? I'm sorry. What? Your goal is to be a dick?
What is that supposed to even mean?
Congratulations on meeting your goal.
Is this something that men know that women don't know about? Because
I think, yeah, this is weird. They're telling us about his love of using this term as he's in this phallic shaped submersible talking. You're just like, oh my gosh, but your goal in life is to be a big swinging dick.
He's probably dreaming big swinging dicks.
I don't know what the heck's going on at this point.
I don't either.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So this is the life goals when you're in the 1%. Goal is just to be a big old dick. Be quite honest. If you're looking at the submersible, it kind of looks like a big swimming dick. You've got this glass head and this shaft. Maybe he was designing it after his goal. Dream design.
I told you he was dreaming big swinging dicks.
He just wanted everything to be a dick. Ooh, the shade. We know how Stockton is financing this submersible. I got questions if I'm the person paying to be a mission specialist.
Good grief. What a workaround.
So we heard in the testimony during the U.S. Coast Guard investigation that you had to have certification before you had paying passengers. So how do you work around that?
Well, you
Don't call them passengers.
You call them mission specialists.
You know, okay, so a mission specialist pays you some money, goes, takes a little ride on the ship. Now, that might be a distinction without a difference. That's a passenger. So how do you get around that part?
Why, you actively seek their involvement. You have them screw on the hull of the ship.
Her what? You are having these people put together the ship that they're about to go down in.
Yes.
This seems like a bad idea. Why are these people paying $100,000 and then going to work on the submersible? Wouldn't you have questions?
I would, but I think they referred to most of these people at this point as extreme Titanic enthusiasts. They even had names for them. What was it? Titanomaniacs or something?
So they're
like
not
that.
asking the questions. They're just like, all right,
They
sounds
just want to
good.
go. Yeah, they just
I
want to
don't
go.
care. Let me screw on this glass thing and let's go down there, Bo. Oh my gosh. Wow. I mean, this was an experimental submersible, and this is how they were funding it. They were taking the deposits from mission specialists for the trip and then saying, hey, come screw this thing together with me. Never call yourself a passenger. You're going to be a mission specialist. And you see some of these mission specialists, they're introducing themselves. Like one of them is this kid.
Young. He was young.
Very young. I mean, he had to be like in his teens, maybe early 20s. And he's like, yeah, I'm a mission specialist.
Yeah. And they're signing disclosures.
No wonder this thing isn't safe. So yeah, they did sign waivers. We kind of talked about this. He speaks with such authority. And I said, well, you know, you got to look in the contract. If there's something in this contract that you're signing, doesn't matter what he's saying. If that contract says it's all within this contract and nothing that is set outside is a warranty, then you're going to be held by that. And these rich people aren't having attorneys review this contract and explain the consequences, which what are they waiving?
It literally said you could die.
You can die. You can have emotional trauma. Like anything can happen to you. We are giving you no guarantees. Even if this cocky guy is sitting there telling you all of this stuff, this is experimental. You see the word experimental like 3 times within a couple of sentences. Y'all read stuff before you sign it. And if you don't understand it, go call an attorney. Go talk to somebody. This is why we go to school. So we can help you understand the ramifications before you're screwing together a soda can. Now, what was the most important thing? He said everything else could fail. Stockton said everything on this could fail, but we're fine as long as
it's sealed up. Everything is sealed up and solid.
and
The
it
structure
doesn't implode. That's the number one concern. This man knew this was what he needed to be worried about. He knew. He's on videotape saying, we just have to make sure it doesn't implode. Everything else can fail. It'll be fine. Lights can go out. Just make sure it doesn't implode. Unbelievable.
And we meet Bill Price. He
Yeah.
trusts. Yeah,
He's one of those people who decided to pay to do the DIY experimental space exploration. I mean, sorry, ocean exploration.
yeah,
I still be in space. This is out of this world to me.
yeah. He trusted Stockton. He trusted Paul.
He didn't have questions. So yeah, Paul Henry, one of the people that died in the implosion, this wasn't his first go around. He was actually a commander for the French Navy. He had done at least 37 trips to the Titanic with Stockton. So these self-mission specialists, they just believed in the confidence of the team. They believed in this Princeton engineer and this French Navy commander. And yeah, 37 times isn't a lot, but they're telling him everything's going to be okay. They're charging him a lot of money. They're making him sign waivers that say you can die. It's not our fault. I've got questions, but I guess they just didn't care. Like, whatever this person's saying, fine, I'll sign it. No, such a bad idea. So Paul Henry, the French explorer, they call him PH for short.
And he was not a passenger. He didn't work for...
Well, there were no passengers. There were only the mission
Sorry, he
specialists.
was not a mission specialist.
Investors.
He didn't work there. He was invited.
We have mission specialists who are paying to go on it, not passengers. Remember, they're screwing it together. You've got people that are being paid, the employees. But yeah, this is just his buddy PH who's coming along for the ride, because remember, you can bring your friends.
And he's going to make this mission every time it happens with him around credible. It's safe.
That's exactly why he's getting free trips here. So people like Bill Price, they trust him. He's been on 37 trips before. He is their cloak of credibility.
Yeah. He was getting used. I'm sure he didn't mind. I mean, it was his passion. He loved doing that. But still, he was basically, in my opinion, being used to show some credibility for this submersible.
He was a French commander, but I guess the engineering from Princeton is what made people feel safe with Stockton. I don't know. Just because you're a commander and you're leading the Navy doesn't mean that you have the knowledge of creating a brand new submersible design.
He may have just in general, hey, he's here, so it must be safe.
Sounds good. It sounds pretty. That this French commander of the Navy sounds pretty. People won't question it. Sounds like authority. Well, Stockton wanted to get a carbon fiber hull down to the Titanic, and he succeeded. And we're shown some video of prior voyages. No, I don't understand the appeal to this. This gives me anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, it was some amazing footage, but I don't understand why risk your life to go down there to see it.
Now, I'll just look at the pictures. I don't want to be in that tin can. Like, what if you have to pee?
Good point.
Got questions. This is a tiny little vessel. It looks smaller than a car, and you're shoved in there with a bunch of people, and you're in there for hours going up and down, and you're going to the Titanic, which is kind of creepy and haunted anyway. I just don't see the appeal. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah, and Rob McCullum, he says, yeah, he was successful. He accomplished his goal, but we knew it was
success.
Yeah, we knew that it was going to fail. It was just a matter of when.
They didn't know. And the investigation, it's going to show that they had to replace the hull in the middle of the process because it was breaking.
This is just unbelievable.
It wasn't a question of whether it was going to implode. It was when. It could be the first trip. It could be the 10th trip. It could have been, he was surprised that it didn't even implode like on the first trip.
Yeah.
So this was not safe, which is why I'm sure Stockton is going to plan B, which is license it here or flag it here, build it here, and take it out of here. He knew that this wasn't going to get classed.
No.
They all knew it. All right, Channel Surfers, you just survived part 1 of OceanGate, the Titan OceanGate Submersible documentary on Netflix. We will be back for part 2 tomorrow on Friday. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe so you can catch part 2 tomorrow. And then on Saturday, we will be dropping the full Dateline episode, Sliding Glass Door. Not the same part 1. We re-recorded. Dee and I finished that up because I think most of the part 1 was just a lot of, chit chat about everything. Plus it had the Coburger pictures that I'd been wanting to show everybody from the Dateline with Idaho. Anyway, we will see you soon. We'll see you tomorrow with part 2. Make it a little more digestible so you guys aren't listening to a 2-hour podcast. And thanks for watching with us. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Let's ride.
Don't